When Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu welcomed the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi for his second official visit, he didn't just speak of diplomacy. He spoke of something much deeper.
Narendra, my dear friend, more than a friend, a brother. In many ways, brothers.
But brotherhood wasn't always at the foundation of the India-Israel partnership. In 1938, one of India's most revered founding fathers, Mohandas K. Gandhi, wrote, quote, "Palestine belongs to the Arabs in the same sense that England belongs to the English or France to the French. It is wrong and inhuman to impose the Jews on the Arabs." After independence, India positioned itself as a leader of the non-aligned movement, openly critical of Zionism and firmly supportive of Palestinian self-determination. In 1947, India voted against the UN partition plan for Palestine. In 1949, it opposed Israel's admission into the United Nations. And in 1975, India supported the UN resolution that equated Zionism with racism. So what changed? And how much of that change is about Narendra Modi? Now, Modi was the first Indian Prime Minister to visit Israel on a standalone trip back in 2017. Notably, he didn't pair it with a visit to Palestine. And once again, Modi has no plans to visit Palestine on his second visit. And in his speech at the Knesset this time, he reminded lawmakers of a symbolic coincidence.
I was born on the same day that India formally recognized Israel, September 17, 1950.
Now, India did recognize Israel in 1950, but it did not establish a full diplomatic relationship until 1992. And in between, something more complicated was happening. Publicly, India championed Palestinian rights, but privately, it was working with Israel. During the 1962 war with China, Israel supplied India with weapons, and it did so again during the wars with Pakistan of 1965 and 1971. And after India's external intelligence agency, RAW, was formed in 1968, it began secret liaisons with the Mossad, Israel's spy agency. Even as India recognized the Palestine Liberation Organization in 1974, and later the State of Palestine in 1988, defense ties with Israel were growing behind the scenes. The turning point came in 1992, after the Cold War had ended. And as the Oslo peace process began, India normalized relationships with Israel. And from then on, military and technological cooperation had expanded steadily. But successive Indian governments balanced that relationship carefully with relations with Palestine. But all of that shifted under Modi. In 2017, he became the first Indian prime minister to visit Israel. And in 2018, he made a brief stop to Palestine in Ramallah. And over time, India's public statements have increasingly avoided explicit references to East Jerusalem as Palestine's future capital. But meanwhile, India upgraded its ties to Israel as a strategic partnership. The defense cooperation deepened. India became the biggest buyer of Israeli weapons, and it also expanded agricultural, cyber, and AI collaboration. Then came October 7. And after Hamas's attack and Israel's war in Gaza, a campaign that has drawn genocide allegations that are now being heard at the International Court of Justice, many of Israel's traditional partners have voiced public criticism. But India, it stayed largely supportive. Customs data that was reviewed by Al Jazeera suggested that India continued to even export rockets and explosives to Israel during the war. And at the Knesset, Modi offered unequivocal support of what he called a, quote, zero tolerance and an uncompromising response to terrorism.
No cause can justify the murder of civilians.
That steadfast commitment in Israel, at a time where it's being criticized worldwide, didn't go unnoticed. After his speech, Modi received the first ever Speaker of the Knesset medal, the highest honor given by Israel's parliament. So what does Modi stand to gain by deepening India's partnership with Israel? Well, part of that answer is strategic. Israel provides advanced military technology and a deep intelligence partnership. It offers cyber capabilities and even agricultural innovation, and it strengthens India's ties with the United States. Both countries are now central players in new groupings like the I2U2 and the proposed India-Middle East-Europe corridor. But beyond strategy and finances, there's also ideology. Both Modi and Netanyahu lead nationalist governments that frame security, civilizational identity, and counterterrorism as central to statehood. And within segments of the Hindu nationalist political right, the idea of an Akhand Bharat, a vision of an undivided historic South Asia that expands over neighboring countries, echoes the calls amongst parts of the Zionist right for a greater Israel. These affinities have made the partnership more open, more personal, and less cautious than ever before. What's new isn't the alignment, it's the visibility. You see, India and Israel have cooperated for decades, but under this new, growing brotherhood between Modi and Netanyahu, the question is, does their open cooperation change India's global standing? Since independence, India has seen itself as a voice of the global South, a country whose leadership is claimed from its history of anti-colonial solidarity. But in a world where many of India's non-Western partners have taken sharper positions against Israel's conduct in Gaza, a question emerges. Can India still claim the moral leadership of the global South while standing so publicly with Israel? As India embraces realist geopolitics, it's abandoning its old ways of discretion. And in geopolitics, sometimes the difference between quiet alignment and public brotherhood is everything.